After 8 years in the Navy, the word home hits different. For me, home wasn't just a return address. It was peace. It was stillness. It was waking up without the sound of water slapping against metal hull or the bark of a CO echoing down a corridor. I was ready for my quiet cul-de-sac, my front porch coffee, and a long overdue reunion with civilian life. So when I finally pulled into my driveway in early spring, there was one thing I brought back with me that meant more than anything else. The boat. Not just any boat. This was the 24-foot patrol vessel I had spent 3 tours aboard. Decommissioned now, stripped of all sensitive tech, and gifted to me through a veteran recognition program for service above standard. It wasn't armed anymore. It wasn't active. It was a relic, a piece of history. I towed it back on a clean trailer, parked it neatly on the concrete beside my garage, and threw a tarp over the deck until I could build a custom shelter. My neighbors waved, asked questions, even took pictures with their kids beside it. Most of them thought it was the coolest thing they'd ever seen in the neighborhood. But not everyone. Enter Karen. She showed up within 2 hours. I was still unpacking boxes in my garage when I saw her approaching. High-waisted khakis, pastel polo shirt, phone in one hand, clipboard in the other. Classic HOA queen uniform. She didn't smile, she didn't introduce herself. She walked straight up to my boat, slapped a fluorescent orange sticker onto the side hull, and turned to face me like she was delivering a court summons. "This isn't allowed," she said. I blinked. "What? This boat. You can't park it here. It violates community appearance regulations. It's unsightly, it takes up driveway space, and it's not in compliance with Section 6.3 of the HOA agreement." Took a breath. I'd been home less than 3 hours. "With respect," I said calmly, "this boat is mine. It's legally registered. It's on a trailer. It's not leaking, and it's not obstructing any sidewalk or neighbor's view. It's within property bounds, and I'm a dues-paying homeowner. That means it's none of your business." Karen didn't blink. "It makes people uncomfortable. Military vessels are aggressive symbols. This is a residential area. We have standards." She turned and marched away without waiting for a response. I peeled the sticker off my boat and tossed it in the trash. At first I figured it was just a weird interaction. Maybe she had a thing against boats. Maybe she didn't like veterans. Maybe she just needed to feel important. I didn't think she'd actually do more. I was wrong. The next day, I received a notice taped to my front door. Notice of violation, unauthorized storage of military equipment. Underneath that, a fine of $250, 0 cents. With a note that it would increase every 24 hours the vessel remained in view. She had filed a formal citation through the HOA. No phone call, no conversation, just an assumption that her clipboard gave her the right to police my property, like I hadn't spent the last 8 years defending hers. I called the HOA office. They said Karen had submitted a complaint and attached a handful of blurry photos with "Resident refuses to comply" scribbled across them in red ink. The woman on the phone apologized, said I could appeal it at the next board meeting, 2 weeks from now. I laughed. Then I asked her to put that appeal on file. But I didn't wait 2 weeks. That afternoon, I reviewed the HOA bylaws in full. No regulation prohibited a properly registered boat on a homeowner's driveway, so long as it didn't obstruct the road, sidewalk, or adjoining properties. I took photos, made measurements, documented everything. And, just to be safe, I called my JAG contact, because what Karen didn't know was this. While the boat had been decommissioned, it was still listed under a preservation clause that protected its appearance as a recognized artifact. Under federal law, it couldn't be altered, vandalized, or tampered with. Not even by a civilian HOA. Karen had just stuck a sticker onto a Navy patrol vessel. The storm hadn't started yet, but it was coming. And when it hit, it was going to be a legal tsunami. By the time day 3 rolled around, Karen had escalated from passive-aggressive to full-on HOA war mode. The orange violation stickers weren't enough anymore. She started parking across the street from my house every afternoon, camera phone pointed straight at the boat. I saw her through the blinds, narrating voice memos to herself like she was recording for a courtroom drama. It's still there, blocking visual flow. Neighbors are clearly distressed. Spoiler: none of my neighbors were distressed. Most of them actually stopped by to ask when I was going to give them a tour. One kid even asked if I had any torpedoes left on board. I didn't, but I appreciated the curiosity. Karen, however, was clearly on a mission. She began posting in the neighborhood Facebook group with increasingly unhinged captions. Warship parked in civilian zone. Everton ignores safety rules. Militarization of the Oak Creek Meadows. She typed like a headline writer for the HOA edition of the National Enquirer. Then she took it a step further. She printed those same captions, along with grainy, zoomed-in screenshots of my boat, and slid copies under every door on the block. She even taped one to my mailbox. In red marker, she'd added, "Is this what we want in our neighborhood?" Honestly, it might have been laughable if she hadn't crossed the line that afternoon. I was working on cleaning the boat, just wiping down the rails and checking the tarp, when I heard that same sharp, hollow sound. Thwack. I turned and saw Karen, again, slapping another violation notice to the side of the hull. This time, she used duct tape. Duct tape, a naval-grade vessel. The adhesive alone could damage the paint. She didn't ask, didn't speak, just slapped it on and stepped back like she was placing a warning sign on a condemned building. I walked over slowly. "Karen, this is your last warning. Do not touch my property again." She actually smirked. "This isn't your property anymore," she said. "You forfeited your community privileges the moment you brought that thing here." That thing was a U.S. Navy patrol boat. I smiled, but not with my mouth, with my eyes. The kind of smile that says, "You just made the worst mistake of your HOA career." "I hope you documented everything," I told her. "Oh, I did," she snapped. "So did," I replied. That night, I sat down and wrote one email. Just one. I attached all the photos, videos, screenshots, Facebook posts, and copies of every violation notice. I addressed it to a JAG contact I'd worked with during my last year of active duty, someone who now worked in legal compliance for the Navy's Civil Asset Protection Division. The subject line read, "Interference with Naval Artifact Civilian Violation. Urgent Review. Request." I didn't have to wait long. By the next morning, I had a response. They wanted full statements, timelines, HOA documents. I sent everything. And then the wheels began turning. I got a call that afternoon from a Department of Defense liaison. He told me that under current code, my patrol boat, though decommissioned, still qualified as a preserved military asset due to its service record and unique build status. It was protected under federal statute, and any tampering without explicit owner or DOD permission was considered property interference. "Did she touch it?" I told him about the stickers, the duct tape, the photo distribution. There was a pause on the other end. "All right," he said. "We'll take it from here." I didn't know exactly what they meant at the time, but Karen was about to find out. And when she did, no HOA handbook in the world could save her. Karen had no idea the storm she just invited into her perfectly trimmed HOA world. But the Navy did. 4 days after I filed the complaint, a government SUV pulled up in front of my house, not blacked out like in the movies, just a modest gray vehicle with a small Department of Defense emblem on the plate and a man in a clean, pressed civilian suit stepping out. He introduced himself as Special Agent Donald Reyes, assigned to the Navy's Legal Services Office. He was polite, thorough, and very serious. We walked the perimeter of my property. He took photos, asked about timestamps, wanted printed versions of the notices Karen had taped to the hull. I gave him everything. When we finished, he flipped his notepad shut and said, "You did the right thing documenting it all. This is bigger than an HOA dispute." I raised an eyebrow. "How big are we talking?" "Well," he said, "she unlawfully tampered with a federally protected vessel, publicly disseminated false claims about its status, and attempted to fine a veteran for housing a military artifact on private property. That's already 2 counts of civil interference, 1 count of reputational harm against a federal representative, and potential violation of the Uniformed Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act, even though you're no longer active." He paused. "And that's just our side." He left that afternoon, but not before assuring me that the case was being escalated. He wouldn't say where, only that legal teams are reviewing civil and federal ramifications. Karen, of course, was still at it. The next day, she posted a photo of the Dodd vehicle in the Facebook group with a caption that read, "Bringing in federal agents to intimidate us. Is this a war zone or a neighborhood?" She was unraveling. And I didn't have to lift a finger. The real turning point came the following Monday. That's when she received an official notice from the Navy's Regional Legal Office. Certified mail, stamped, signed. It was a cease and desist letter citing her direct violation of 10 U.S. Code SS 7722, interference with government property, preserved asset clause. The letter stated clearly that any further contact, harassment, or tampering would result in formal charges. That's when Karen did what Karens do best. She doubled down. She tried to hold an emergency HOA meeting in her living room. She invited anyone who would listen, passed around printed screenshots of military statutes she didn't understand, and claimed I was faking government backing to silence the board. I wasn't at the meeting, but Stan was. According to him, someone finally asked the question everyone was thinking. "So, wait, you touched a Navy boat, and now you're surprised the Navy's mad?" The room went quiet. Karen fumed. "He's using his military status to bully this neighborhood." Another neighbor chimed in, "You stuck duct tape to federal property, Karen." That was the moment she knew. The tide had turned. The neighborhood wasn't behind her anymore. There were no more whispers of support, just the sound of an empire crumbling, one HOA rule at a time. The following week it became official. Karen was served with a formal complaint from the Department of Justice. I heard about it from Agent Reyes, who stopped by one last time with a courtesy update. She's being sued for damages to a protected military asset, he told me, along with a separate claim for harassment and unlawful fines against a veteran. Oh, and slander, because of the false information she distributed about you in public forums. I must have raised my eyebrows halfway into my hairline. She's looking at a federal civil penalty of nearly $500,000, he added. It'll take months to process, but yeah, it's real. All because she couldn't leave a boat alone. All because she thought a clipboard and a title gave her more power than the Constitution. Karen always thought she could talk her way out of anything. Rules were things to twist, not follow. Authority was something to wield, not respect. But federal court doesn't play by HOA rules, and neither does the Department of Justice. The first time I saw her walk into the courthouse, she was still playing the part. Blazer a little too stiff, binder clutched like a weapon, sunglasses on, indoors. She looked more like a substitute teacher than someone facing 6 federal violations and a civil suit from a military legal team. I didn't have to testify that day and was just a preliminary hearing, but I sat in the back, watching as her attorney stumbled through arguments about personal concern for neighborhood integrity and misunderstandings regarding ownership. The judge wasn't buying it. When the Navy's counsel stood up, she read out every violation like she was reciting a grocery list. Unlawful tampering with a preserved federal asset. Distribution of false claims that incited community disturbance. Harassment of a veteran in violation of USERA protections. Public defamation. Property damage. Misuse of HOA authority for personal vendetta. Karen's lawyer tried to object twice, denied both times. The judge set a date for a full hearing and warned that if Karen didn't begin cooperating, additional penalties could be levied. I heard the word injunction and nearly smiled. Over the next month, things got worse for her. Her attorney dropped her. The HOA board voted to remove her as president in a special meeting, one she wasn't even invited to. Someone uploaded a video of her Facebook rants to a Reddit forum, and it went semi-viral. By the time she made local news, the headline said everything. Former HOA president faces federal suit after tampering with Navy vessel. The article didn't pull punches. They quoted my military service, highlighted the protected status of the boat, and included a photo of the duct-tape violation notice, still wrinkled on the hull. Karen's name trended locally for 2 days. The final hearing happened midsummer. I was called in to testify. I explained everything, how I brought the boat home, how I followed every HOA rule, how Karen acted without warning or discussion, and how she escalated despite my attempts to handle it peacefully. Her response? She claimed I intimidated her by using my veteran status to sway the neighborhood and weaponize sympathy. The judge looked over her glasses and said, "Ma'am, are you suggesting that a decorated service member's mere presence is a threat to his own neighborhood?" Karen shifted uncomfortably. "No, I'm saying he made me look bad." The courtroom fell silent. The judge took less than a week to rule. She found Karen liable on all 6 counts. She was ordered to pay $450,000, 0 cents in damages, including $150,000, 0 cents, for defamation and harassment. $200,000, 0 cents in federal civil penalties. $50,000, 0 cents for legal fees. And another $50,000, 0 cents in restitution for the restoration of the boat's finish and hull. Karen cried in court. Her house went on the market 3 days later. She tried to appeal. The request was denied. I never saw her again. A few months after the case ended, I took the boat to a custom shop. They restored the paint job, cleaned the aluminum rails, and touched up the decals. It looked even better than the day I trailered it home. But I added something new. Just under the nameplate near the bow, I had a phrase painted in military stencil font. "Do not touch unless you want to meet the U.S. government." Neighbors still ask about it. I give them the short version. Some laugh. Others just shake their heads and mutter, "Karen really thought she could win, huh?" Yeah, she did. But the thing is, when you go toe-to-toe with someone who's spent their life following rules, you better be damn sure you're not the one breaking them. Next up, I rebuild my porch, repaint the driveway, and settle into the quiet that comes after a war well fought. The day Karen moved out, the neighborhood felt lighter. It wasn't the kind of event people cheered for, but it was the kind that made you exhale, like everyone had been holding their breath for years and suddenly remembered how to breathe. She didn't say goodbye, didn't post a final rant, just a white moving truck, a sagging real estate sign, and one bitter glare from behind the passenger window as she rolled past my house for the last time. I stood in my driveway, sipping coffee beside my boat. Didn't wave. Didn't smile. Just stood there, peaceful. And maybe that was worse for her than anything I could have said. The HOA elected a new president that fall. Stan, the neighbor with more common sense than pride. First order of business? Rewrite the bylaws to prevent unilateral action by board members. Second, reinstate the HOA's relationship with local veterans, including a commitment to recognize service in community events instead of punishing it. The mood changed fast after that. People started walking more, staying out later. Front porches were decorated again. Flags came back. Not just American ones, but garden flags, college banners, that sort of thing. For the first time in years, it felt like we actually lived in a neighborhood, not a curated display case under constant inspection. That's for me. I built a custom shed for the patrol boat. Weatherproof, solar-lit, gravel floor. Some called it overkill. I called it peace of mind. I still take the boat out twice a year. Down to the local Veterans Day parade, and again for Memorial Day. Kids line up to climb on board, parents take photos, and no one, I mean no one, tapes anything to her hull. Never been much for vengeance, justice sure, but I wasn't looking to ruin Karen's life. That wasn't the point. The point was simple. I served my country, followed the rules, and came home to live a quiet life. She couldn't handle that. But the laws she thought would protect her ended up being the very thing that took her down. One of my favorite moments came a month after she moved. I got a card in the mail. No return address, just a plain envelope. Inside was a single note, handwritten. It said, "Thank you for standing up. We always thought she was untouchable." I didn't recognize the handwriting. Didn't need to. Sometimes you stand alone until others remember they can stand too. Today, the neighborhood looks the same, but it feels different. Warmer, freer, more human. And every time I look out my window and see that patrol boat sitting in its shelter, I smile. Because now everyone knows exactly what it represents. Not just service, not just history, but the reminder that no one, no matter how loud, how petty, or how powerful, gets to rewrite the rules of decency and law. Especially not in my driveway. Thanks for sticking around to the end of this story. If you've ever dealt with an HOA that took things way too far, or had a neighbor who thought they ran the whole block, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Don't forget to like the video if this made you smile, subscribe for more true stories with Justice Served Cold, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next HOA melt. Your support keeps this channel growing and keeps Karen on her toes.